Well, welcome and thank you for coming. My name is Rick Rabor. I'm director of the Sandbulte Center for Ethical Leadership in the School of Business and Technology. This event is sponsored by the School of Business and Technology. The center was created through a gift from Minnesota Power to honor its retiring chairman and CEO, Sandy Sandbulte. I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Lucie Amundsen.
Hi.
And Lucie, along with her husband Jason, who's with us as well, they're co-founders of the locally laid egg company based in Renshaw, Minnesota. And their company has been recognized for several awards and organizations. They won a LABO Environmental Award. They were runner-up out of 15,000 small businesses in the Small Business Big Game Contest, sponsored by Intuit. She also teaches English classes here at CSS. So welcome, Lucie, and
Well,
thanks for speaking to our group.
I know it's like my alter ego. Do you want it? Can we turn down a light so you can
bet.
see the slides better? Thanks. So, Locally Laid is the first pasture-raised egg company in Minnesota. Well, in the upper Midwest, actually. And I'm pretty sure it's the first because no people are stupid enough to work as hard as Jason and I have over the last 3 years. So I just want to let you know what pasture-raised is. There's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. This is a caged system. A good 95% of the eggs in our country come from caged birds. And, you have to hand it to them for efficiency. They eat in the front, they deposit their egg in the back, it rolls out, and it goes right to processing. And that's why you can buy eggs for $1.19 a dozen. Then there's cage-free. Sometimes people get confused that cage-free birds are outside. That photo actually doesn't look as scary on my screen. This is better than cage-free or cage. They get to be out they're not confined to a cage, although they never leave that warehouse, so one could say they're in like one giant cage. Most of the time there are no windows for natural light, so I like to say they kind of like they're living in a casino. They never know what time of day it is, what's going on. They never leave. So this is our pasture raised. It's at our farm. These girls get to be outside seasonally. They get to enjoy being chickens. Like they get to stretch their wings in the wind. They get to scratch up dirt and make dust baths for themselves because that feels good for them. They roost. They function as a flock. So they get to be real chickens out in the world. But this is more than having happy chickens. I am happy to have been part of freeing all these birds so that they can have better lives. But at the end of the day, it's really bigger than that. It is good for the animals and the environment, but it's also good for our consumers. You get a much better product. And we're incredibly proud of what it's been doing for rural Minnesota, and I'm going to get into that. One thing I wanted to talk about is that you can do well in business by actually making the choices that might be a little counterintuitive to the bottom line. I don't know if you ever eat at the Duluth Grill. Yeah? Maybe. Yeah, out back. The Duluth Grill is a great example of that. They get a huge percentage of their food from farmers. And I'm not going to lie, it's a total pain to deal with individual farmers that show up, drop all their produce in like makeshift boxes, may or may not be cleaned and ready to go. And it'd be a lot easier for the Duluth Grill to just call up Cisco and get everything off one big truck and it all gets rolled into their dairy case. But they have a commitment to working with local farmers. And if you notice, if you ever go there, there's a line out the door on Sunday. And people are paying top dollar for this food. So there is a climate change, I think, of people willing to pay for their values. I'm going to talk a little more about that too. But for the eggs, for the consumers, our eggs are better because our girls are outside and they have a varied diet. So if you're a caged bird or even a cage-free bird, you just have this corn and grains, some soy, and that's your diet. But our girls get to be outside and they're eating seeds and bugs. Some frog, that wrong place, wrong time. They will decimate that frog into a change purse in like 5 minutes. So, but to say like they're getting a lot of nutrients that they don't normally get, and you get eggs with less cholesterol, less fat, more vitamin A, vitamin D, omega-3s. And because it kind of makes sense that they're outside moving. Because a caged bird never stands up. And our girls, we like to call them salad-eating poultry athletes, because they're just outside running. And if you've never seen a chicken run, it's a thing of beauty. Pasture-raised eggs we think are better for the planet. We think it's great that our chickens are out there doing all their real chickeny things. But we also plant a tree with every delivery as an acknowledgement that even though we get all our inputs locally and we sell locally, there's always a carbon cost to transporting food. So I think we're up to about 4,000 trees that we planted since 2012. And lastly, this is probably the biggest one, and it's like the least sexy of all of them. But what we are doing is we've created a market for small farms or mid-sized farms to be producing eggs under our brand and sold within their areas. Let's see. All right, just so you can kind of see. So we have our farm in Renshaw and in Henriette, Minnesota, and very poor Pine County. There are 3 barns producing for us. They adhere to our brand standards, and then they package them in our package, our locally laid egg carton, and we purchase them. We take all the risk. They get paid whether we sell those eggs or not. And we sell within an area. We have farmers in Kelowna, Iowa, and Middlebury, Indiana. And that serves the Chicago market. So these farmers get to do what they do best without having to do the whole distribution piece and the marketing piece and the accounting piece. So we feel like we're reviving this middle agriculture. Has anyone heard the term middle agriculture? Yeah, I was so happy before I knew the term middle agriculture, and suddenly I am living middle agriculture. Because our size farm, we are too big to sell everything we produce to a farmer's market in a direct-to-consumer model. And it's not a model we're interested in. I don't want to sit for days out under a tent selling eggs. And we're way too small to be dealing with the great big boys of international commerce, right? These people with the giant tractors and the threshers and the big, big hen houses. That's not who we want to be either. A lot of those hen houses have 300,000 birds in them. That's a lot of birds. We have no more than 2,000. Which sounds like a lot, but in the industry, we're a drop in the bucket. So we're in this middle ag piece, and it's like we're an awkward teen. We don't fit in anywhere, and it's a really stressed segment of the agricultural zone. There's, believe it or not, little farms are actually in a growth phase, and big farms are acquiring lots more land every day. But it's these guys in the middle who end up being great customers to the stores in their area, to their feed mill, to the fleet farm in their area. And they end up creating a lot of jobs. They usually have employees. We are really losing these farms. Since under 10 years, it's been over 18% of those farms have dwindled. It's like 130,000 farms that have just, shuttered the doors, not employing anymore, and it's affecting these rural communities that are really getting hollowed out. So something that we're proud of is that Henriette, Minnesota, that in Pine County, there's a farmer there who, on the strength of his locally laid contract, is buying his farm that he's been renting for years. That's the kind of thing that gives you goosebumps. You're like, this is actually changing lives. And it looks like Pine County, that has been in poverty for years and years and years, I'm thinking this next census data is going to show that they're no longer in poverty because it's such a small community. So who produces our eggs? If you look there, our little chicken says, I'm Amish. Wearing a little Amish hat. We do have, it turns out all our producers are Amish, and this wasn't what we intended. Actually, they came to us, one group, the group in Henriette, and said, we want to produce eggs for you. And I was immediately aghast, because I'm like, well, that's contract production. And contract production is servitude, There's all these, John Oliver, the comedian, has a great segment on the meat bird industry and how the producers just get hosed beyond belief. And there's been a long tradition of contract producers getting just the short end of the stick. And I didn't want anything to do with it. And then, like, are we going to be like a McDonald's? Are we going to stamp locally laids all over the country? And I just, this doesn't feel like it's part of our values. But Jason made some good points. He's like, well, for one thing, it's not like McDonald's because we're not going to truck our brand name feed in. Those farmers can actually hire their neighbors to grow their own non-GMO corn, and they can take that to their own mill, and then they can hire their neighbors to help at the farm and buy all their other inputs, anything that goes into a farm locally. Then we buy their eggs and sell them within their location, and all that money is swirling around. And Jason made the most excellent point that since we would be writing these contracts, we could write them so they didn't suck. I'm like, you're right. We could write the contracts so they don't suck. And they're rather transparent. People know who's getting paid for what. In this country, farmers typically make a really scary low margin, something like 8%. And that's been that way since industrial farming has taken over. With our contract, producers make, somewhere in the realm of 20? Higher. So that is really changing their lifestyles. And Amish folk are very family oriented. And so everyone we're working with, all these farms, pretty much they're all related to each other. So Merlin or Maynard tells his cousin, and all of a sudden these folks are coming to us wanting to produce. So those are our producers. Oh, this is Jason's joke, that the reason the Amish need us is that they are great at farming and really poor at Twitter. So we do all the branding. Rick mentioned a moment ago that we were part of this Intuit contest. We work with UMD's Center for Economic Development, and our business coach said, hey, you should enter this contest. There's no way you're going to win. The prize is a Super Bowl ad. However, you get 2 weeks free of Intuit's online program, their QuickBooks, for free. And we're like, we're in. So we wrote an essay, we put up a photo, downloaded our QuickBooks online for free, and didn't really think about it that much. Jason said, whenever I put in this Intuit Small Business Big Game website, locally laid is coming up second, like indexing really high up. Do you think that means like people are actually voting for us? It was one of those click vote deals. And I told him that he corrupted his computer by searching so many times. This is not right. I went to a public computer, actually at a hotel lobby. I don't know if I was really supposed to do that. But I got on I put in Small Business Big Game, and there we were at number 2. And does anyone know what NORML is? It's the National Organization to Legalize Marijuana. So Lola was almost as popular as pot. We were beside ourselves, and we were digging in. So we had a pretty large campaign on a very small budget. I know it's a little hard to see, but we had these bookmark size informational sheets that we distributed. We asked every pizza place in Duluth to hot glue gun them to their boxes, and they did. We asked just about every hotel to put them on their pillows, and they did. And we asked almost every restaurant in this area to put them in with their business checks. And we couldn't believe the kind of support we were getting. All right, I kind of planted the first marquee, the VoteLola.com. We had set up in Earl. I have a friend who works at Zeitgeist, and I said, would you put up VoteLola.com? Just take a picture of it, and I'll put it online. All of a sudden, without us doing anything, there was like 15 of these up in town. And I don't know anyone at the mall. I think I've been there twice. And that the mall would put this up with saying, like, is this a groundswell? What's the definition of a groundswell? What's going on here? We had people peeping out their rides, putting their Vote Lola on the back of their windshields. We had a Get Out the Click rally. At Coppertop, you'll see a lot of these rallies for, like Senator Franken has had one, and you go by and there's like 8 people. There was something like 25 people out there in the cold waving these signs. And then because the internet is magical and international, this is from England. We don't know anyone in England. But that's what was going on. We did not win the Super Bowl contest, but we came in second. And they took us to New York City, and they said, do you want to ring the NASDAQ bell? And we're like, yeah, we'll ring the NASDAQ bell. We were kind of nonchalant about it. If someone asks you to ring the NASDAQ bell, do that, because that's a lot of fun. We had no idea it'd be totally fun. And that's our picture in Times Square. And for 15 seconds, we were bigger than David Beckham. All right, so we get into branding. Like, how the heck did this little chicken company in Renshaw, Minnesota, end up in Times Square? And it's all about brand, because it's not like we had more money than anyone else to work with. Surely we didn't. And it was all about building this personality to our business. So I really think of branding as being just all the qualities you have in a friend that you like. And we brought those out. Oh, you should write this down. You should watch this TED Talk. It's Simon Sinek, Start With Why. 18 minutes of your life. He's really pretty entertaining. But I kind of base all our marketing on this. His idea is that people do business with those who share their values. So it's not so much that Rick is buying eggs from me because he loves pasture-raised eggs. Maybe Rick is buying eggs from me because he really grooves on this planting a tree thing that we do. Or he doesn't like the idea of confined chickens. Because people, Simon says, people don't buy what you do. People buy what you do. They buy what you do it. Kind of feels like Yoda language, but if you watch the video, it really makes more sense. People are looking for businesses to really have all the same values that they do. And they also are looking to kind of wear these brands almost like a NASCAR driver. It becomes who you are, like people in Subarus, they're supposed to be more outdoorsy. People in Toyotas are probably really fiscally smart and conservative and know a good value. People with Hummers, they have issues. All right. When I talk about branding, it's almost easier to talk about a different brand, and we'll get back to mine. I listen to this podcast every week when I am washing eggs. Wash a couple thousand eggs every Sunday, and then put on my headphones, and I listen to Radio Lab. And there's a nice, 15-second spot about honest tea. So I went to their website. I wanted to see what they were about. And this was their mission. And I think of a mission as what gets you out of bed in the morning. Why does anybody who's an entrepreneur get up and work so very hard and risk everything? And it can't be about the money, because that's really not going to be enough. Because one thing, when you start a business, there's no money. There's no money at all. So it has to be passion-driven. So this Honest Tea, they want to, they're all about honesty and integrity and having these great ingredients that they put into their tea. And this mission went on for pages and pages. But I was kind of getting on board with that. And I don't really buy bottled tea or any beverages that's not beer. Because I can make tea at home, right? So I'm not their market, but I'm interested. They had an entire section called Aspirations for Corporate Social Responsibility. And I'm like, whoa. And it went on for pages and pages about all these great things they do. And I love that they start with, they never claim to be a perfect company. Because I happen to know another imperfect company that's trying really hard. So I think right away, it's a very disarming thing. Their About Us was so charming, and it's about how these two guys met and they wanted these less sweet beverages. But I super like that these are real people, right? These are not spokesmodels. These are just guys. Really, it's regular guys, and they're out there doing something different. And then as I was shopping, and I sort of mindlessly bought some. And I'm like, I totally know how marketing works. I get this. And it worked for me because I got really excited about what their company stands for. And I still buy it, and it is good. So people get excited about locally laid because we have these small flock sizes that I say are micro-brewed. Our birds are outside. We have the whole non-GMO corn thing, the trees, and we have this brand. Something else I didn't put in there is that we source everything that goes into our eggs locally. And that Subaru does exist, actually. It was supposed to be Jason's Subaru because it was kind of obnoxious. And he said, I don't like the way I'm too tall. So now I get to drive this car that says "Get Locally Laid" on the side of it. People wave enthusiastically. I'll go to Target and there'll be these people taking photos with my car. So you got to do what you got to do. So I want to talk a little bit about marketing, and because we've built this brand, but now I need to push it out into the world. And the thing is, we really don't have a huge budget. But for the time being anyway, social media does seem still like the great equalizer. But who am I talking to? And what am I saying to them? And I think that is all kind of hidden in my mission statement. Because it's all about creating real food for neighbors, treating livestock, the planet well. And by sourcing and selling locally, we're championing this whole middle ag thing and the strengthening rural communities. And getting back to what this Simon Sinek said, people do business with those who share their values. These are my people. So when I'm writing a blog, when I am writing a social media post, which I wish I had time to kind of break that all down for you, but when I'm doing that, I am talking to these people. And every time I have a post, I'm like, which of these folks am I feeding and watering today? What language am I using that's going to make animal welfare folks really happy? What am I saying about our local ethos, which is going to excite those localvores? Am I touting the eggs that, because they are pasture raised, you open them up and the whites stand up and it has this nice orangey yolk and has something called yolk integrity, which is one of the food people taught me. I have to tell my foodies that. My farmies, there are a lot of people who are big on this ag of the middle and they care about rural communities. And some of them are vegan and they buy my t-shirt because they really want to be part of supporting us even though they don't eat eggs. Chicken fans are this close to crazy. These are intense human beings who, if I don't put up a fresh chicken photo every day on Twitter or Instagram or on Facebook, they will message me and ask me if the chickens are okay. So I put up a lot of chicken photos, which I call softcore poultry. And my playful consumers like our packaging, they like our name, and they like our tongue-in-cheek marketing. All right, so back in December, I got a nasty gram. Someone wrote me a really mean letter. And it's funny, I went to the farm and it said locally laid attention management, which is like, there's kind of a blend between labor and management going on at locally laid. We don't have a lot of employees. But he essentially apparently he bought these eggs in haste. He got home and he's like really offended to his core about the packaging. And some of the highlights was, there's the package. He might have a point. We push the envelope. I am the first to say that. But, because locally laid could look like an adult website. I get that. But his highlights was that he told, kind of me personally, that I'm putting crudeness into the world. There's another slide before, that I'm vulgar. He called me vulgar. And then he said, and your eggs are the highest price in the market. And it's funny, he called me essentially like a revolting human being. But what really irked me is he said my eggs were too spendy. And this is where I sort of lost it. The good news is that in my 40s, I know to set the letter aside. And I let it sit for almost a month before I wrote this guy back. And when I did, it happened to be the State of the Union address, and that's on. It's kind of big in my house. I make popcorn, we watch it. And there's that rousing music, right? The fanfare. And I'm on the couch and I'm writing this letter. And I sort of like milquetoast. I acknowledge its post, and I'm a nice Midwest gal, and I don't want to make anybody unhappy or upset. But then I kind of remembered my brand. And that chicken up there, she's Lola. She's short for local, short for laid. And she is the embodiment of this brand personality. And I'm like, Lola wouldn't take this. And I want him to know what's behind this name, which I contend is dirty optional. Yes, you can go there, but there's a perfectly reasonable, locally laid eggs, chickens. You can go there too. But I wrote to him, and Jason said I went full frontal farmer on him. Because I talked to him about the mind-blowing labor that happens at the farm, hand-feeding birds, moving these solar electric fences to put them on fresh pasture, watering. The jobs are kind of endless when it comes to the farm. I talked about food miles, how most food in this country goes further than our vacations. Those Cheerios have had so many more miles behind them than any of us get in the summer. And how that's an abomination, and you have to account for all that diesel in our diet. And locally laid eggs are sold locally, and all that corn is grown locally. I told them about the trees and how important that was to us. I told them about how we're micro-brewed, how we have these small flock sizes. And it's hard to micro-brood. You can be a hobby farmer and go snatch up 5 birds from underneath the heat lamp at Dan's feed bin, or you can call a giant hatchery and order 30,000 chickens. But getting 2,000 is really hard because there's not this swath of middle-sized producers to be creating all these point-of-lay birds for you. I talked about consolidation in the industry. There are over 300 million hens, and they're controlled by 260 corporations. Not 260 corporations in Minnesota, 260 over the US. And that brings in ideas of food safety. With this avian flu, there was a farm in Iowa that they had some birds that got this flu, and they had to destroy 1 barn's worth of birds. That was the federal mandate. And it was 300,000 birds. And I remember thinking, like, why do you have so many birds in one location? And it's about efficiency. I get that. But it also comes down to food safety. If they get salmonella, all those birds get salmonella. So it's just something to think about. We do not benefit from government subsidies in the way that Big Ag does. Actually, we've gotten some grants from the state, and they've been great to us. But if we're buying straight GMO commodity corn, it's really cheap. And it's not really cheap because it's super cheap to produce. It's cheap because the government subsidizes the heck out of it. And we don't get those benefits. So it makes it harder to compete with the dollar eggs at the supermarket. I talked about how we're doing all this locally sourcing. And the middle agriculture, I told them all about that in the letter. And I finished it. I'm like, would you have learned all this if we were called Amundsen Farms? I don't think so. You know, I take that extra second that consumer gives me by looking at my package, and I just cram as much education in there as I can. I put it online. Jason was sweet. He's like, honey, it's a really nice letter. No one's really going to care. Because it's pretty wonky, right? I had all these USDA stats and figures, and yeah, I just was like typing. But if you see, I don't know how clear it is, a few people saw it. So actually, they would go to our website. At about 260,000, it totally crashed our website. And it got picked up all over the place, and it would get retweeted and retweeted, got shared a lot. And the best thing is, we sold like 500 t-shirts in about a week. I'm sure this gentleman who sent me the letter was not expecting that to happen, because I know we weren't. And I also got a 20-minute interview. 20 minutes. Most interviews are like 2 minutes on Minnesota Public Radio. And we really talked at length about middle agriculture. And it was a very proud moment for Locally Laid to be bringing this term to the lexicon. I wrote this all out. It's in a book that's coming out March 1st. It was actually my thesis, and I had to do a lot of citations. So when people are teaching you how to cite, pay attention, because I didn't, and it was a lot of work. And this is just a picture of Jason and I hanging out at the farm. Part of our playful consumer that we have going on. I actually couldn't hold a straight face, and so Jason told me to think about the third mortgage on our house. That's what I look like when I think about our debt. I don't even think I own my fillings at the moment right now. I do have our video that I could show you, and it features Jason. So I hope it's not going to be too loud here.
My name's Jason Amundsen. I guess you would call me the head plucker of Locally Laid Egg Company. We have about 2,500 chickens up here, 14 exercising on pasture every day. We're in Renshaw, in the Duluth region of Minnesota. And our hens, they're all named Lola. That's right, she's a sassy chicken. Why is it important to have chickens out of pasture? Well, in simple terms, a healthier chicken is going to lay a healthier egg. Our girls are pushki athletes. As you can see, what we call eat the fresh salad bar every day. Beyond that, we feed our chickens locally sourced non-GMO corn, and we firmly believe that it's not rocket science that a healthier bird will lay a healthier egg, but it is science. We've been working with farms across the Midwest who've approached us and asked how they can bring locally laid eggs to their neighborhood. And to help offset our carbon footprint, we plant a tree with every delivery. That's why we stand behind our tagline, local chicks are better. This is a hard job, but our company has always been about one thing, providing real food to people, all while treating both the hens and the planet well in the process.
I love the whistle at the end. That was produced locally by a UMD graduate, and he's like, well, I just taught myself how to play the banjo. Do you want me to do a soundtrack? So that was pretty fun. This isn't mine. But that's actually all I have. I don't know if you have any questions. Yeah.
So it's obviously in Duluth, and it gets really cold in the winter. What do you do with the chickens when it's like snowy and stormy?
At our first farm, what we did, we had those hoop coops, and we would insulate them with bales of hay around them, and they could go outside if they wanted to, because it's good for them to be out and moving. A lot of them would pass. It was pretty cold that first winter. So cold, in fact, that we're like, we need a barn. And we bought a farm that has a barn, and we brought them in the next winter, and they were like, we need an insulated barn. And we do not have an insulated barn at this time. So what we do is we have been buying older birds, and we keep them throughout early spring to late fall, and then we don't overwinter them. So actually we just sold some birds that are going to be overwintered by a different farmer. So yeah, there was a question here, yeah.
Where do you plant your trees?
Well, we let the Nature Conservancy do that for us, but we have stipulated that they be in northern Minnesota. So they've invited us out to go see the standing trees, and we do have to go do that. Yeah.
I've known you guys for a long time, so I know the whole story and have been inspired throughout the years. And I'm curious to know, what has surprised you along the way? What did you not expect about this whole experience, besides all the, Super Bowl?
Well, I tell this story in the book that, remember I said it was really hard for us to procure chickens because there's no one doing chickens this way. But we did find this guy in Iowa who did this as a side business, and it turned out he was a yahoo and not particularly good at it. So we got these birds that came, he delivered them in a heat wave on Grandma's marathon weekend without telling us. He said, hi, here I am with your hundreds and hundreds of birds. And we had them, they had been battered by their transport here. They were very hot and very in need of water. We got them everything they needed, shade and water. And then as the sun is setting, I want to see them go into their coops at night, because chickens come home to roost, and they come home to roost. It's hardwired. This is just not roost optional. They're going to roost because that's what chickens do. And the sun was setting and setting and setting, and these chickens are just looking at us with their one side eye, looking at us like they have no idea what to do. And it hit me that I'm like, oh my God, these chickens do not know how to respond to sunset because they've never seen the sun. So then Jason and I and our two children had to put all these birds into their coop by hand. And if you're wondering if a chicken, how fast can a flightless bird be, really fast. They dodge and weave, and they'll go between your legs, and they'll knock you into the fence, and then you say bad things because you like your fence. So we did get all those birds in, and then I said, Jason, they're not roosting. Like, we need them to be up on these little sticks, and it's good for them for a lot of things. It's what they're supposed to do. It airs out their tail feathers, and they get to be together for warmth. But they had no idea how to roost. And it also is a real estate issue. Like, our coops are designed that most of the birds are going to be up on these tiers of roosts, and right now they're all on the floor and they're going to smother each other. So Jason, actually, I went home and I was sad. I went home and kind of drank a box of wine. And Jason stayed, and he waited for them to fall asleep. And when chickens sleep, they're like pliable as like a passed out drunk. So he went bird by bird and put them each up on their roosts. And he did that for hours, and he did it every night for like 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, until he kind of rewired their little poultry brains. And they're like, somehow one day were like, I remember, I'm a chicken. and then they started roosting. So I didn't see that one coming. Yeah, does anyone else have a poultry-related or business-related question? Yeah.
Did you design your own logo, or did you?
Didn't. Matt Olin, who used to teach here, a graphic designer, he did it, and honestly, I don't know if our business would do so well if it hadn't been for that look, because that look is part of the personality from which I formed the voice of Lola, and able to tell our story through. Yeah, I should have given him credit. So he's a great designer. All right. Yeah.
So you guys had obviously a lot of success. Do you guys want to expand more in the future, or?
Well, we have been expanding, and it gets to a point where we actually really would need an investment to expand so we can hire people. Right now we're like mom, pop, and bro, and occasional accountant. And obviously I'm teaching here and I'm doing marketing. Really all I do is wash eggs. They do all the heavy lifting. So we would need more people. We came this close to having an investor, and then it didn't happen. So I don't know, do you have anything to add to that, Jason?
The short answer is the problem with eggs is it's a supply and demand health. And the reason why is because you can't click your heels and all of a sudden you have birds in barns. So for example, last fall, Cub Food says, we're going to bring you on. And I'm like, great. So we get 8,500 birds producing for us in Henriette. And they said, oh yeah, but here's the deal. We're going to start with the corporate stores first, and then we're going to move on to the franchise stores. And I'm like, okay, great. How soon? Well, it's going to be a couple months. So what that meant is that we had weeks and weeks and pallets of eggs sitting there last fall, literally sitting there. And then we would donate those eggs, and then I'm contracted to buy them. And then we would take those eggs and we would go throw them on the ground after donating what we could. And I write checks.
Yeah, the local food shelf was like,
local food shelf was like, we're done. We don't want this. We don't want anymore. So that's the problem in this game is supply and demand. Like right now, we don't have enough eggs. People are screaming at us. It's a long way of answering your question is that I have a little PTSD over that. Like I'm just too nervous to even think about going any further, just because I'm just gun-shy. Because I've just kind of been to these wars, and it's pretty painful. So the short answer is yes, we're going to expand in small amounts, but nothing quickly.
Unless you want to buy the business. All right. All right. Were you going to ask?
What's the most rewarding part of running your own business?
We get to start our 14-hour day whenever we want. For me, it's been writing about it, and I know I use that as kind of a shield so it's not this full body impact of how scary and how leveraged our lives are. So so I mine a lot of the funny out of it, and I write that, and to me that's been really rewarding. Would you say working with these partner farms, or certainly watching them do well, and like the Amish always want you to like hang out with them. You have to go. I know, because I've been a freelance writer for years where I've had relationships with editors who I could not identify in a lineup. You know, like I don't know these people. We just correspond and we do our business and it's fine. But the Amish want to hang. They want to eat a meal with you, and you have nothing really to talk about other than the weather and farming because it's not pop culture. And going there and after a year or so of them being in business, having them say that they're getting their house insulated for the first time and feeling like we might be a small part of that felt really good. But how about you, Jason?
I think the thing is, I think the rewarding piece for me, and I say this as a guy with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, is that what you're taught in school is theoretical, and what you're doing in the real world is reality. So the opportunity for me to actually take some of the things I learned about liberal arts education and apply them in a way, but you're getting a real world business education, I think has been the most rewarding thing for me. And the ability over a period of time where you start learning from your mistakes and you can quickly say, I'm not going to do that again. that truly has been one of the most rewarding things for me, which I know sounds really small. But if you don't repeat your mistakes, you're doing awesome.
Just wondering, do your kids have any interest in carrying on the business? Or are they?
No.
I don't think so. Our daughter Abby is a freshman in high school, and she actually is really pretty darn good with birds, and she doesn't mind washing eggs. She also listens to podcasts while we wash eggs. But I don't see a fervent will to like enter the noble poultry industry. And our little guy Milo, no. And poor thing, he has this coordination disorder, so he's a little bit clumsy, and his family owns an egg farm. Yeah, that's not fair, is that? No. All right.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot.